The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in absolute silence. Not the peaceful kind, mind you, but the sort that settles over a room when everyone knows they've made a catastrophic mistake and nobody wants to be the first to admit it. Ambassador Threx of the Valerian Empire adjusted his ceremonial sash, trying very hard not to meet anyone's optical receptors. Across the chamber, High Chancellor Meridian tapped her elongated fingers against the obsidian table, each click echoing like a countdown timer to disaster. So, she began, her voice dripping with the kind of forced calm that preceded volcanic eruptions. Would anyone like to explain how we went from "humanity is surely bluffing" to 17 of our fleets are now decorating various asteroid fields? Nobody volunteered. 3 cycles ago, everything had been different. The humans, those adorable bipedal mammals from the backwater planet they called Earth, had sent their first diplomat to the Council. Captain Elena Voss, if Threx remembered correctly. Young, energetic, with that peculiar human smile that never quite reached their eyes when discussing serious matters. She had stood right where Threx now sat, delivering what the Council had considered the most amusing speech in galactic history. "We come in peace," she had said, and oh, how the assembled representatives had tried not to laugh. "But understand this. We have been holding back. Considerably. If provoked, we will defend ourselves with every resource at our disposal." Holding back. The phrase had become an instant meme across Council networks. These newcomers, barely capable of faster-than-light travel, claiming restraint? The Valorians had warships older than human civilization. The Kree-Pak collective possessed weapons that could atomize planets. What could these pink-skinned primitives possibly be restraining? Commander Zal of the Kree-Pak had actually stood up during that session, all 8 of his limbs quivering with barely suppressed amusement. "Little human," he had said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into galactic standard, "we appreciate your enthusiasm. Truly. But perhaps you should observe how real powers conduct themselves before making threats you cannot possibly fulfill." Elena Voss had not smiled. She had simply nodded, once, collected her data pad, and left the chamber. Her final words echoed in Threx's memory now with uncomfortable clarity. "You have been warned. Please remember that." Of course, nobody remembered. Why would they? The Council had more important matters to attend to. Trade disputes between the Andorian Consortium and the Hexine merchants. Territorial negotiations in the Outer Spiral. A heated debate about whether the refreshments at Council sessions should include more vegetable-based options. Then came the incident at Station 17. A human cargo vessel, the Meridian's Hope, had been intercepted by Kree-Pak raiders. Standard piracy, nothing unusual. 3 Kree-Pak destroyers demanding cargo and tribute. The cargo ship, piloted by exactly 4 humans, had politely declined. The Kree-Pak, as was their custom, had opened fire. Warning shots, naturally. Nobody actually wanted to destroy the vessel, just intimidate it into compliance. Pirates, after all, couldn't profit from debris. The Meridian's Hope had responded by obliterating all 3 destroyers in approximately 47 seconds. 47 seconds. When the sensor recordings reached the Council, Threx had watched them 19 times, convinced there must be some error. But no. The human cargo ship, which scans indicated had all the military capability of a floating recycling facility, had sprouted weapons from compartments that supposedly did not exist and reduced 3 military-grade destroyers into their component atoms with prejudice. Clearly a malfunction, High Chancellor Meridian had declared. Some sort of experimental malfunction with their reactors. Tragic, really. Commander Zal had agreed. The alternative, that a cargo ship crewed by 4 mammals in what appeared to be casual clothing had just destroyed 3 warships, was simply too absurd to consider. So they had sent a proper military response. 12 Kree-Pak heavy cruisers to arrest the humans and confiscate their vessel for investigation. None of those ships returned. The distress calls, however, did. Frantic, disbelieving messages from seasoned military commanders screaming about impossible maneuvers, weapons that appeared from nowhere, targeting systems that seemed to predict their every move before they made it. "They're not fighting like merchants," one captain had shrieked into the void. "They're fighting like they've done this for centuries. They're fighting like they enjoy it. They're fighting like..." Static. Then more fleets had gone missing. Valerian scouts investigating human trade routes. Hexine patrol groups that had decided to test these upstart mammals. Even a consortium diplomatic envoy that had perhaps made some unfortunate demands regarding human compliance with certain trade restrictions. All gone. Not destroyed in dramatic battles, but simply, gone. Vanished as if they had never existed. Except for the debris fields and the increasingly panicked final transmissions. High Chancellor Meridian slammed her palm against the table, jolting Threx from his thoughts. "Ambassador Threx, you had direct contact with the human delegation. Did Captain Voss give any indication of their actual capabilities?" Threx's throat pouch contracted nervously. She said they were holding back. Yes, we all heard that ridiculous posturing. But did she provide specifics? Technical data? Weapon specifications? She provided a complete database of human military history. The chamber fell silent again. "And?" Meridian prompted. Threx accessed his personal archive with trembling fingers. "I never read it. Nobody did. We assumed it was primitive warfare. Sticks and stones, perhaps some crude chemical explosives. Entertainment value only." He projected the file index onto the central display. The list scrolled. And scrolled. And scrolled. Thousands of entries. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. Conflicts spanning their entire recorded history. Human-on-human warfare, almost exclusively. "Great merciful void," someone whispered. Commander Zal, what remained of his pride visibly crumbling, spoke in a hollow voice. "They have been fighting themselves for their entire existence." "Not other species," Meridian said slowly, understanding dawning with horrible clarity. "Themselves. They have been practicing warfare on each other for millennia. Perfecting it. Innovating. Competing." Threx nodded miserably. "Captain Voss did mention something else during our private conversation afterward." "What?" "She said humanity had finally achieved global peace approximately 2 centuries ago. I asked how they managed it. She smiled, that same not-quite smile, and said, 'We got bored fighting each other. Turns out we're much better at it when we work together.' The implications hung in the air like radiation after a core breach. "So," Meridian said very quietly, when she said they were holding back. She meant they had spent 200 years restraining instincts honed over millennia of constant warfare, Threx finished. "Until we gave them permission to stop holding back." Outside the council chamber, another distress beacon activated. Then another. Then 6 more. The lesson had begun. The council chamber had transformed from a place of dignified governance into something resembling a disaster coordination center. Holographic displays flickered with real-time updates of fleet movements, each one representing another group of ships about to learn why picking fights with humans was spectacularly ill-advised. Ambassador Threx watched the tactical display with the detached horror of someone witnessing a preventable catastrophe unfold in slow motion. The Hexine merchants had just dispatched their pride and joy, the Sovereign Revenue, a battleship so expensive it had its own economic classification. 23 minutes ago, it had encountered a human vessel identified as a recreational yacht, near the Telos Junction. The yacht's transponder listed its name as Aggressive Negotiations. Threx suspected that should have been their first warning sign. Status update on the Sovereign Revenue? High Chancellor Meridian demanded, her elegant features twisted into an expression that suggested she already knew the answer and hated it. Communication ceased at timestamp 749, reported Tactical Coordinator Ven, a usually unflappable Andorian whose antennae were now drooping with stress. Last transmission indicated their shields had been breached by what the captain described as, and I quote, weaponized sarcasm and physics violations. Weaponized sarcasm? Commander Zal repeated weakly. His translator struggled with the concept. The human vessel broadcast a message before firing, Ven continued, checking his notes with visible reluctance. It said, nice battleship. Would be a shame if someone demonstrated why bigger does not mean better. Stand by for educational purposes. Silence descended, broken only by the soft pinging of more distress beacons activating across the sector. Threx cleared his throat. Perhaps we should consider the diplomatic option? You mean surrender? Zal snapped, his pride finally overwhelming his common sense. The Kree-Pak collective does not surrender to mammals who were still discovering fire when we were colonizing star systems. Actually, Threx said, pulling up historical data with shaking hands, according to the Human Military Archive I really should have read earlier, they discovered fire approximately 1.7 million cycles ago. They have been using it to burn each other ever since. They even have a historical period they call the Age of Gunpowder, where they invented increasingly creative ways to make controlled explosions kill more efficiently. Delightful species, Miraquin muttered. Perhaps we could send an apology? 3 delegations have attempted contact, Ven reported. The humans responded to all 3 with the same message. We warned you. You ignored us. Class is now in session. Please take your seats and silence your communication arrays. As if on cue, the primary display updated with a new transmission. Captain Elena Voss appeared, looking exactly as composed as she had during her first visit to the Council. Behind her, Threx could see what appeared to be a command center staffed by humans who seemed far too relaxed for people currently demolishing the galaxy's most powerful military forces. Greetings, Galactic Council, Voss said pleasantly. I trust you are enjoying the demonstration. Miraquin stepped forward, attempting to salvage some dignity. Captain Voss, we may have, perhaps, underestimated your people's defensive capabilities. Surely we can negotiate a cessation of hostilities? Defensive capabilities? Voss repeated, and now that smile reached her eyes. It was not comforting. Chancellor, we have not deployed any military vessels yet. Everything you have encountered so far has been civilian ships exercising their right to self-defense. The council chamber erupted in panicked chatter. Civilian ships? The vessels that had been systematically dismantling their fleets were civilian craft? You are joking, Zal said flatly. Commander, humans joke about many things. Our capacity for violence is not one of them. Voss gestured to someone off-screen. Let me introduce Admiral Marcus Kane, commander of Earth's 3rd Defensive Fleet. Admiral? A new human appeared beside Voss. Older, with gray hair and eyes that had clearly seen things Threx did not want to imagine. Counselors, Kane said, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through experience. I have been asked to provide context. The civilian vessels you have engaged were crewed by merchants, tourists, and in one case, a family returning from vacation. None were military personnel. None had military-grade weapons, by human standards. By human standards? Threx heard himself ask. Kane's expression suggested he was explaining basic mathematics to children. Our civilians carry what we classify as personal defense systems. Sufficient to deter pirates and defend against small-scale threats. Military vessels carry significantly more comprehensive ordnance. How much more comprehensive? Miraquin whispered. Our standard destroyer carries enough firepower to sterilize a continental landmass. A heavy cruiser can crack a planet's crust. Our dreadnoughts. Kane paused, considering. We have never needed to use a dreadnought in actual combat. The simulations are classified, but let us simply say that when humans design something, we tend toward excess. Venn was rapidly cross-referencing human ship classifications with confirmed sightings. His face had gone an alarming shade of purple. Chancellor, according to this data, we have not encountered anything larger than human frigate-class vessels. Their fleet classifications continue through 17 additional size categories. 17 categories. This is madness, Zal said, but his voice lacked conviction. Why would any species build such excessive military capacity? Because we spent 10,000 years fighting each other, Voss replied simply. Every nation, every tribe, every group competing for resources and survival. We became very, very good at warfare because we had to be. The alternative was extinction. When we finally united, we did not forget those lessons. We simply redirected our focus. Admiral Kane nodded. The Council wanted to know what humanity was holding back. The answer is simple. We were holding back the accumulated military knowledge of a species that has been at war with itself for most of its existence. We were holding back innovations born from desperation and necessity. We were holding back the simple fact that humans excel at exactly one thing more than any other species we have encountered. And what is that? Meridian asked, though Threx suspected she already knew. Efficient violence, Kane said without emotion. We have had practice. Lots and lots of practice. The tactical display updated again. Human vessels were appearing throughout Council space. Not attacking, simply arriving. Taking positions. Waiting. So what happens now? Threx asked quietly. Voss smiled, and this time it was almost gentle. Now, Ambassador, you learn. You learn that humanity came to the Council genuinely seeking peace. We offered friendship, cooperation, and mutual prosperity. We warned you, clearly and directly, that we were capable of defending ourselves. You chose to interpret our honesty as weakness and our restraint as inability. We made a mistake, Meridian admitted, the words clearly costing her. What are your terms? Terms? Kane looked genuinely surprised. Chancellor, we do not want territory. We do not want tribute. We do not want subjugation. We want what we have always wanted. Peace. Respect. And the simple courtesy of being taken seriously when we tell you something important. Voss stepped forward. Effective immediately, human vessels will maintain their current positions throughout Council space. Not as occupiers, but as peacekeepers. We will ensure safe passage for all legitimate traffic. We will respond to genuine threats against any Council member species. And we will demonstrate, through our actions rather than our words, that humanity prefers cooperation to conflict. You are offering to protect us? Zal said incredulously. After we attacked you? Commander, you made a mistake based on incomplete information. We are offering you the chance to learn from it instead of being destroyed by it. That is what civilized species do. The Council sat in stunned silence, processing this. Threx finally spoke. Captain Voss, why did you truly give us that military history database? Because, Ambassador, I hoped you would read it. I hoped you would understand what humanity was and what we had overcome. I hoped you would recognize that a species capable of such violence against itself had learned the value of peace. She shrugged. You did not read it. But perhaps now you will. The transmission ended. The Council members looked at each other, then at the tactical display showing human ships calmly maintaining their positions. Not threatening. Not attacking. Simply present. So, Meridian said eventually, I suppose we should read that database now. Threx nodded, already accessing the files. I suggest we start with the section titled, Why Humans Do Not Recommend Warfare as a Hobby. Is that really what it is called? Yes. The subtitle is A 10,000-Year Case Study in Learning Things the Hard Way. Despite everything, Miraquin almost smiled. How very human. Outside the council chamber, human ships maintained their silent vigil. The lesson had been taught. Whether the galaxy would learn from it remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. Nobody would ever again mistake human restraint for weakness. The warning had been given. The warning had been ignored. The lesson had been delivered. Class dismissed.